My name is Lena Walker. I'm 36 years old, a licensed architect living in Boston. And until last month, I thought I knew where I stood in my family. I thought being the eldest meant something, that my years of stepping up, of showing up, had earned me a permanent place at the table. Turns out, I was wrong. It started on a rainy Thursday afternoon. I had just wrapped up a brutal project deadline, the kind where you live off black coffee and stress for 3 weeks straight. All I wanted was to curl up on my couch, breathe, and maybe scroll mindlessly through my phone. That's when I saw it. It was a photo on Instagram. My cousin Tara had posted a sunny group picture taken on a dock somewhere tropical. Everyone was smiling. My mother, my younger brother Ethan and his wife, my sister Emily, cocktails in hand, dressed in resort wear, all of them glowing under a golden sky. The caption read, "Caribbean cruise kickoff with the best people." My stomach dropped. I hadn't been invited, and I hadn't even been told. At first, I thought it must be a mistake. Maybe I had missed an email or a group chat. Maybe it was last minute and they forgot. But as I stared harder, zooming in on their sunglasses and drinks and carefree smiles, something else caught my eye. My mother was wearing the scarf I had gifted her last Christmas, the one I bought on my last trip to Paris, the one she said was too fancy to wear out. I tapped to view more of Tara's stories, only to realize I couldn't. I had been blocked. They didn't want me to see. I sat frozen on the couch, the sound of rain tapping against my window barely registering. I felt the sting first in my chest, then in my throat. It was like being a kid again, watching the other girls get picked for teams while you sat on the bench, invisible. Except this time, it wasn't classmates. It was my own family. I texted Emily, "Hey, are you guys on a trip? I just saw Tara's post." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No reply. I waited. 10 minutes, then 20. I called my mom, straight to voicemail. I sat there for what felt like an hour, torn between confusion and rising anger. I kept replaying every conversation over the past few weeks. Had I missed a hint? Had they said something I dismissed? Why would they leave me out of something we've done together every year since Richard passed? That's when I remembered. Ethan and his wife had been unusually quiet lately. Not asking for favors, not complaining about rent. Too quiet. My phone finally buzzed. A message from Emily. "Hey, Jules, we figured with how busy you are, you wouldn't be able to make it. Linda said it was probably best not to pressure you. Don't take it personally, it's just one trip." Not to pressure me? I had already blocked off the week after Christmas, assuming we'd do our usual New Hampshire cabin stay. I even declined a client meeting for that window. And now, I was just not included? Suddenly, everything felt off. The silence. The small changes in tone lately. The way my messages had gone unanswered more often than usual. I hadn't imagined it. I had been cut out, deliberately, quietly, and with full cooperation from the people I had supported, housed, and stood by for years, and somehow they expected me to be okay with it. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's survival. I stared at Emily's message for a long time. It's just one trip. Funny how people say that when they're the ones going. For me, it wasn't just anything. It was the annual ritual that had kept us tethered together, even when life got chaotic. After Richard passed, our cabin getaway became sacred. Snowball fights, late-night cocoa by the fireplace, board games that turned too competitive. It wasn't about the location. It was about belonging. And now they'd traded that tradition for a Caribbean cruise. Without me. I called Ethan next. He picked up on the third ring. "Hey, Jules," he said too casually. "You're on a cruise?" I asked, skipping pleasantries. There was a pause. Yeah, just a little getaway." "Emily didn't tell you?" "She did, after I saw the photos." Ethan sighed. "Look, it's been a stressful year. We all needed a change, a real break. The cruise was Linda's idea, and I guess we figured you'd be busy like always." "Funny how you all managed to coordinate time off except me," I replied flatly. Ethan fumbled for words. We didn't mean to exclude you. But you did. Silence. I have to go, he mumbled. Dinner's starting. He hung up. I sat in my kitchen, gripping my mug like it could ground me. My apartment, normally my safe space, suddenly felt too quiet, too sterile. That's when I heard it. Laughter. Loud, careless laughter, coming from the floor above. I looked up instinctively, even though I already knew. Ethan and his wife Sophie had been living in the penthouse unit of the brownstone I owned. They'd moved in last spring after Sophie lost her job, and they couldn't afford rent. I'd offered the space at a ridiculously low rate, just enough to cover property taxes. Just until we get back on our feet, Ethan had said. That was 11 months ago. Since then, they'd thrown birthday parties, clogged the garbage disposal twice, and somehow forgotten to pay rent on time 4 times. I'd cleaned up after their messes, fixed the broken HVACs, and even restocked their pantry when Sophie had COVID and they couldn't shop. And now they were sipping piña coladas on a cruise that I'd been excluded from, laughing in a home I let them live in nearly rent-free. I suddenly remembered the package I picked up earlier, a delivery addressed to Sophie. Curious, I checked the sender, Luxury Cruise Essentials. Of course, a knot tightened in my stomach. I pulled out my laptop and opened my budgeting spreadsheet. Just last month, I'd covered their half of the water bill. Meanwhile, they were dropping hundreds on matching swimwear and custom luggage tags. I wanted to believe I was overreacting, but deep down, I knew this wasn't new. It was just the first time I couldn't ignore it anymore. I grabbed my phone and texted my best friend Hannah. Need a drink, now. Hannah met me at our favorite wine bar 30 minutes later. You're kidding, she said after I spilled everything. They actually left you out on purpose? Apparently, I'm always too busy. Lena, you literally rearranged your calendar last year to fly home early when your mom sprained her ankle. I nodded, lips tight. They're using you, Hannah said bluntly. You house them. You pay more than your share for every family dinner. You carry the emotional labor and still get painted as the controlling one. I didn't think it was that bad, I admitted. It is. I stared at my wine glass, then looked up at her. They're throwing a pre-cruise dinner upstairs. Right now. In my building. Hannah blinked. Oh, hell no. The anger I had buried under rationalizations for years, their family, they're going through a hard time, they'll appreciate me eventually, started to surface. Maybe, I said slowly. It's time I stopped making it so easy for them. Hannah raised her glass. To finally seeing it, we clinked glasses. The truth rang louder than the cheers upstairs. And for the first time in a long time, I started imagining what it might feel like to draw a line and actually mean it. That night, I barely slept. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the muffled sounds of laughter and clinking glasses filtering down from Ethan and Sophie's party upstairs. My own family was celebrating a trip I hadn't been invited to, under my roof no less. My own brother, whom I'd bailed out of credit card debt twice, had thrown a goodbye party in my building for a cruise I wasn't even told about. It wasn't just hurt anymore. It was humiliation. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache. Not from alcohol, but from the emotional hangover of being blindsided and disrespected. I knew I had to do something. And it had to be more than a confrontation. Words clearly hadn't gotten me anywhere. I needed action. I started with the lease, or rather, the lack of one. Ethan and Sophie were living in my penthouse on a verbal agreement, no contract, no protections. I'd always believed a handshake and family ties were enough. Apparently, I'd been naive. After work, I sat down with Hannah's cousin Daniel, a real estate attorney she had connected me with. I laid out the situation in detail, trying not to let the heat in my voice rise too much. They're not paying market rent, I told him. They've missed 3 payments, and now they're throwing parties and going on luxury cruises while pretending I don't exist. He nodded, calm and unfazed. Do you want to evict them? I hesitated. I want them out, but I don't want to be cruel. You're not, he said simply. You're setting a boundary. There's a difference. He explained the process. Since there was no formal lease, they were technically month-to-month tenants. All I had to do was give them 30 days written notice to vacate. Legally sound. Emotionally overdue. I left his office feeling both empowered and terrified. That evening, I typed the letter. Notice to vacate. You are hereby given 30 days notice to vacate the premises located at Unit 4B. This decision is final. Please remove all personal belongings and return keys by the stated date. Failure to comply may result in formal legal proceedings. I printed 2 copies, signed them, and slid one under their door. The other I emailed for good measure. Then I turned off my phone. The reaction came the next morning. Ethan banged on my front door at 7:12 a.m., still in his pajamas and robe. I opened the door halfway, coffee mug in hand. "What the hell is this?" he demanded, waving the letter. "It's a notice," I said quietly. "You have 30 days. "Why now?" His voice cracked with indignation. "We're family." "Exactly," I said. "And families shouldn't treat each other like this." Sophie appeared behind him, her arms crossed. "Is this because of the cruise? You're blowing it out of proportion." I raised an eyebrow. "Is that why you blocked me from seeing your posts?" She looked away. "Don't make this about social media," Ethan said, trying to shift the blame. "You're always dramatic." I clenched my jaw. "No, I'm done being accommodating while everyone else gets to pretend I'm invisible. I gave you my home, my support, and you didn't even think I deserved honesty." "So what, you're just kicking us out before Christmas?" Sophie snapped. "You're adults," I said. "You'll figure it out." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "Linda's going to be furious." "I'm sure she will," I said, and closed the door. Later that day, my mother called. I let it go to voicemail. Then Emily texted, "Wow, Jules, really mature." The guilt started to creep in, but I reminded myself, this was a line that had to be drawn. Not to punish them, but to protect myself. I wasn't doing this because of the cruise. I was doing this because I'd spent a lifetime being the responsible one, the fixer, the backbone. And in return, I got lies, exclusion, and gaslighting. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, curled up on the couch, and stared out the window at the falling snow. It felt like the beginning of something. Not revenge, but liberation. It had been 5 days since I gave Ethan and Sophie the 30-day notice. The tension in the brownstone was thick. Elevators suddenly went quiet when I stepped in, and passive-aggressive stomping echoed from the ceiling like clockwork. But I didn't waver. Until that Saturday. I had spent the morning cleaning, hoping a fresh space would clear my head. I opened my window to let in the cool Boston air, when I heard laughter, familiar laughter. I leaned out and looked up. My heart dropped. The my rooftop patio, was lit up like a rooftop bar. String lights, music, even a rented portable heater. Tables were set up with trays of catered food, champagne chilling in ice buckets. A small crowd of people mingled under the lights. And in the center, my mother. Laughing, toasting, holding court. I blinked, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Then came the banner. Bon voyage, Ethan and Sophie, Caribbean dreams. The rage boiled up so quickly it startled me. My family was throwing a send-off party for the trip I had been excluded from. On my property, under my nose, after being served a legal notice. I pulled on a sweater, slipped into shoes, and took the stairs 2 at a time. When I burst onto the rooftop, the party didn't stop. Conversations just quieted. A few heads turned, then quickly looked away. Sophie was the first to speak. "Oh, Lena, didn't think you'd be home." "Really?" I said. "Because I live here." Ethan approached with a smug half-smile. "It's just a little party, Jules. Relax." My mother joined him, drink in hand. "Lena, honey, don't make a scene." There it was, the phrase that had always been used to shut me up, to make me the problem. "I'm not making a scene," I said calmly. "I'm stating a fact. This is private property. You didn't ask for permission." "It's family," Linda said. Like that made it acceptable. "No," I replied, my voice rising. "Family would have had the decency to invite me to the trip they planned behind my back. They wouldn't host a celebration in my home while pretending I don't exist." A hush fell over the party. Ethan scoffed. "So what, this is about your ego?" This is about respect, I snapped. You live in my building, on my generosity, and now you throw a party for a trip you never even told me about. And you didn't think I'd notice? Don't do this in front of everyone, my mom hissed. You did this, I said. I just showed up to witness it. Aunt Joanne set down her wine glass awkwardly. We were told you were too busy to come. I turned to face her. Busy? I cleared my calendar. I rearranged client meetings because I assumed we'd be doing what we always do. But I wasn't even informed. And now, after everything I've done for this family, financially, emotionally, you're standing here, toasting each other like I'm just the landlord. Sophie muttered something under her breath. I caught the words so dramatic. I turned back to Ethan. This ends now, the party, the entitlement, the narrative that I'm the problem for finally having a boundary. I looked around the group, locking eyes with people I'd bought gifts for, helped move apartments, lent money to. You all knew, and you were okay with it. Ethan tried again. Come on, Jules, it's just one night. No, I said. This is the night. The one where I stop letting you disrespect me in the name of blood. And with that, I walked away. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry. I just went downstairs, called the building manager, and reported an unauthorized gathering. 20 minutes later, the rooftop was cleared. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat in silence, and realized something vital. I wasn't mourning the trip anymore. I was mourning the illusion that I ever really belonged. The morning after I shut down the rooftop party, my phone started ringing before 8 a.m. Caller ID, Linda. I let it go to voicemail, then Emily, then Uncle Brian, then a text from Aunt Deborah that read, You really humiliated your mother last night. That's not what family does. I sat at the kitchen table in silence, staring at the notifications piling up like judgmental little bricks. I didn't respond. Not yet. Maybe not ever. By noon, I had received 12 messages from various relatives. None of them asked me if I was okay. Not one asked what led to all this. Every single message had the same tone. You overreacted. You made your mother upset. You should apologize. It wasn't guilt anymore. It was gaslighting. They wanted me to question everything I'd seen, everything I'd felt, as if I had dreamed the months of being ignored, the way they had tiptoed around planning a vacation without me, the laughter on the rooftop, the banner. By 2 p.m., I finally caved and listened to Linda's voicemail. Lena, I raised you better than this. What you did last night was cruel and selfish. Everyone came together to celebrate, and you made it about yourself. You embarrassed your brother and his wife, and worst of all, you embarrassed me. I hope you reflect on your behavior and come to your senses before you lose your family completely. I hit pause, rewinded, listened again. Cruel, selfish, embarrassed her. It was like she was reading from a playbook I didn't sign up for. I stood up and walked to my bookshelf. On the top shelf was a photo of our last cabin Christmas. All of us, smiling in thick sweaters, holding mugs of cocoa in front of a snowy pine tree. I remembered that night clearly. I had booked the cabin, planned the meals, paid for Emily's flights when she had just started her job. And Linda, she had said, You really hold this family together, Lena. That version of her felt like a different person now. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Ethan. Text message. Heard you've been telling people we freeload. You better cut that out. We've got rights too, you know. Don't push it. I stared at the words, rage bubbling under my skin. That's when I realized something. They weren't just hurt. They were scrambling. Because for the first time, I wasn't playing my role. I wasn't the fixer. I wasn't quietly absorbing their behavior and smoothing things over. I was holding them accountable. And they hated it. I called Hannah that night. I feel like I'm losing my whole family, I said quietly. No, Jules, she replied. You're losing your illusions about them. Big difference. Her words hit me like cold water. She was right. What I was shedding wasn't love. It was the fantasy of being loved in the same way I loved them. You know what you need? Hannah said. A new tradition. I blinked. Like what? Come spend Christmas with me and Daniel. My parents do this massive open house, friends, neighbors, coworkers, no expectations, just good food, loud music, and actual joy. I hesitated. Won't I be intruding? You've hosted half my birthdays, you fixed our pantry shelves, you designed our bathroom remodel. Your family, chosen family. That word, chosen. It wrapped around my bruised heart like a warm scarf. That night, I packed away the old Christmas decorations, the ones Linda insisted I store every year. I placed the Vermont cabin photo face down in a drawer. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I bought a small artificial tree, just for me. And as I plugged in the lights and watched them blink to life, I realized this Christmas wouldn't be lonely. It would be honest. The next few days were eerily quiet. No rooftop stomping, no text messages, no new voicemails. I almost started to believe that maybe, just maybe, they had accepted the 30-day notice and were preparing to move on. Until Friday morning. I was standing in line at a coffee shop near my office when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Ethan. We need to talk. It's important. Please answer. Against my better judgment, I replied, What is it? 3 dots blinked, then the message came through. Vanessa's pregnant. We were waiting to announce it on the cruise. But now that it's all blown up, you should hear it from us first. I stared at the screen. Coffee order forgotten. Pregnant? The sister-in-law who had avoided work, freeloaded for months, partied in my building, and badmouthed me behind my back, was now going to be a mother? Part of me wanted to feel something warm. Joy, maybe. A sense of hope that this news would somehow soften the tension. But mostly, I felt suspicion. Because if this were really a heartfelt update, why send it now? Why not weeks ago when they first found out? Why now, after the eviction notice, the party, and the flood of judgment from our family? Why now, unless they wanted to use it as leverage? That night, I got the confirmation. Hannah forwarded me a screenshot from Facebook. Sophie had posted a pregnancy announcement. A perfectly lit photo of her and Ethan holding a tiny pair of baby shoes, standing in front of a Christmas tree, my Christmas tree, in the upstairs unit. I recognized the background instantly. The caption read, Expecting our little miracle in July, bittersweet since we'll be moving soon thanks to, well, some unfortunate family decisions. But we're hopeful. Hatched family. First, forgiveness is love. The comments were exactly what you'd expect. OMG, what kind of person kicks out a pregnant couple at Christmas? You're so strong, Sophie. Praying for your peace. Whoever did that should be ashamed. It was clear. I was being framed as the villain. Again. Hannah called me immediately. Girl, you saw it? Yep. You okay? I took a breath. I think I'm past shock now. I'm in clarity mode. Hannah paused. I'm simized. So what's next? I'm not changing my mind. Pregnancy doesn't erase the disrespect, and it doesn't make me their permanent safety net. Hannah exhaled in relief. Good, because trust me, that baby's not going to fix their behavior. The next morning, a formal letter arrived. An envelope from a law firm, Trevor and Doyle, LLC. Inside was a threat of legal action. A claim that I was engaging in a wrongful eviction, emotional distress, and potential housing discrimination due to pregnancy. I couldn't believe it. I had followed every step Daniel advised. The notice was legal, no force, no harassment. I'd even given them 30 days during the holidays, far more generous than most landlords. Still, the letter shook me. I called Daniel, who picked up on the first ring. Send me the letter, he said calmly. They're bluffing, but we'll respond, just to make sure they know you're not rattled. Then he added, This is textbook. Pushback when abusers lose access. Stay the course. His words steadied me. That night, I lit my little Christmas tree again and sat down with a cup of tea. I felt the pull of sadness, sure, but not regret. I was doing what I should have done years ago. Not out of anger, not out of revenge, but out of self-respect. 3 days before Christmas, just as I started to feel a sliver of peace, I received an unexpected call at work. It was the front desk receptionist in my building. "Lena," she said, her voice hesitant, "there's a group of people downstairs. They say they're your family. They're asking to see you. Urgently." My stomach dropped. "Who exactly?" I asked, already dreading the answer. She paused. "A woman named Eleanor. Your mother," she said. "A man named Robert. Then a younger couple, Ethan and Sophie." I closed my eyes. So they really went there. "Please tell them I'm unavailable and ask them to leave the building," I said calmly. "And if they refuse? Call security." She hesitated again. "Are you okay?" "No, but I would be." 10 minutes later, my phone started vibrating violently in my pocket. Texts, voicemails, all coming in a flood. From Sophie, "We came in good faith and you couldn't even show your face. Coward." From Linda, "You've humiliated this family enough. We drove all the way here to talk and you locked yourself in an office. Shame on you." From Ethan, "Hope you're happy. Linda's crying in the car, again." I put my phone on silent, placed it face down on my desk, and stared out the window for a long time. There was something so familiar about this pattern. The sudden intrusion, the guilt bombs, the tears as weapons. It had worked before, so many times, but not this time. The next morning, an email landed in my inbox. Subject line, "Family intervention." From my mother. I clicked it. "Lena, your behavior over the last few weeks has raised serious concerns. We understand work is stressful and that you've been isolated, but we believe you may be experiencing a mental health episode. We've scheduled a family counseling session next week and hope you'll attend before things get worse. We just want our daughter back." It was a masterclass in gaslighting. They weren't worried about my mental health. They were worried about losing control, about losing access. That email didn't come from love. It came from fear, the fear of me no longer playing my part in their dysfunctional performance. I didn't respond. Instead, I printed the email out and added it to a growing file folder I'd labeled proof. I didn't know if I'd ever need it, but I needed to remind myself this was real, that I wasn't crazy, that their attempt to paint my clarity as instability was just another manipulative strategy. Later that afternoon, I received a call from an unknown number. I usually don't answer, but something made me press accept. "Lena, wait, don't hang up," a voice said quickly. "Ethan." "What do you want?" I asked, ice cold. We need to fix this. Sophie and we talked. We want to work things out." I didn't say anything. "There has to be a way we can come to some kind of understanding," he continued. "You know, with the baby coming, stability is important. You wouldn't put your niece or nephew out on the street, would you?" There it was, the real reason for the sudden change of tone. "You already have a place to go," I said flatly. "You're at Linda and Richard's. You're not on the street." "But that's not long term. They're older. They can't have a newborn screaming in the house." I almost laughed. "Oh, now you're thinking about how your choices affect other people?" He ignored the jab. "We were hoping maybe we could extend the move-out date, just a few months. Or come back temporarily after the holidays." "No," I said simply. "The 30-day notice stands." "Come on, Lena, we're family." "Exactly. And if you can treat family the way you did, imagine how I'd expect strangers to behave. Goodbye, Ethan." I hung up before he could respond. That night, I sat in my quiet apartment, lights from my little tree reflecting off the window pane. The space felt sacred, mine, and for the first time in a long while, I wasn't angry. I was free. Christmas Eve arrived quietly. There was no rush of packing, no group texts planning carpooling or food, no last-minute phone calls from Linda asking if I remembered to bring the cranberry sauce. For the first time in over a decade, there would be no Carter family gathering. Not for me, anyway. And honestly, that realization both broke and healed me. I spent the morning slow and intentional. I brewed good coffee, played a holiday jazz playlist, wrapped a few small gifts I had picked out for Hannah and her fiancé Danielle, simple, thoughtful things, a personalized sketchbook, a rare blend of tea. By noon, I was icing a batch of ginger cookies, humming along to the music when the doorbell rang. My body stiffened. For a moment, I imagined it was them. Linda, Ethan, even Sophie, back with some grand apology or final plea. But when I looked through the peephole, it wasn't family. It was Aunt Vivian. She stood on the porch, holding a bag of pastries and a wrapped gift box. I opened the door, caught completely off guard. Aunt Vivian? She smiled gently. I hope I'm not intruding. Not at all, come in. She stepped inside, shaking off the cold. I was just passing through on my way to visit a friend and thought I'd stop by. But I knew she didn't just pass through. Aunt Vivian lived 2 towns away. She came here intentionally. We sat in the living room as I poured tea. She took a sip, glanced around the apartment. It's peaceful here, she said. Your mother told me you were going through something, so I figured I'd ask you directly. I looked at her. Kind, calm, observant. So I told her everything. The cruise, the exclusion, the rooftop party, the eviction notice, the public manipulation, the fake concern masked as a mental health intervention. To my surprise, Aunt Vivian didn't interrupt. She didn't raise an eyebrow or play devil's advocate. She just listened. When I finished, she let out a long breath. I wish I could say I'm surprised, but I've seen how your mom and Ethan treat you, and how they expect you to show up without ever asking how you're doing. I stared at her. She smiled softly. You're not the first Carter woman to choose peace over obligation. I just wish I had done it sooner. I blinked. You too? She nodded. Your mom and I haven't had a real relationship in years. Not since she forgot to invite me to her second wedding. Said she assumed I'd be busy. She air-quoted the words with a sad smirk. I had no idea. That's because Eleanor's very good at controlling the narrative and making people feel like the villain for setting boundaries. Her words hit like an echo of my own thoughts. It felt validating. You're not wrong for protecting your peace, Lena, she said. It may feel lonely now, but it's a kind of loneliness that makes room for better things. She handed me the gift box. Inside was a hand-painted ornament, dated with the year. I started a new tradition when I cut ties with our side of the family, she explained. One ornament for each Christmas I spent reclaiming my life. I thought you might want to start your own set. Tears welled in my eyes. It was such a small gesture. But it was the first thing I had received all season that felt like it was truly for me. Later that evening, I arrived at Hannah and Daniel's Christmas open house. The air was filled with laughter, the smell of baked brie, and Mariah Carey playing unapologetically loud. Daniel's parents greeted me like an old friend. Hannah looped her arm through mine and whispered, "Told you this would feel like home." And she was right. No one here cared what my job title was. No one weaponized my independence. No one tiptoed around like I might ruin the party by existing. They just accepted me, fully, warmly, without strings. Christmas morning came quietly. No alarms, no forced smiles, no matching pajamas arranged for a family photo. Just soft snowfall outside my window, the twinkling of my small artificial tree, and a silence that didn't feel empty. It felt earned. I spent the morning slowly. Video called a few college friends who had moved across the country, laughed with an old roommate who was celebrating with her cat and a frozen lasagna. Everyone had their own little corner of peace. Around noon, I bundled up and headed to the local community center, where Hannah had signed us up to volunteer. Serving holiday lunch to strangers may not sound like a Christmas tradition to most, but for me, it was exactly what I needed. There were people from all walks of life, some unhoused, some elderly and alone, some families just scraping by, but everyone was smiling, everyone grateful, everyone real. I handed out mashed potatoes and smiles, and in return, I received something I hadn't felt in a long time: connection. Genuine, unfiltered. No backhanded comments, no veiled judgments, no walking on eggshells. Just Merry Christmas and thank you and have a blessed day. I realized in that small cafeteria filled with strangers, I didn't feel invisible. I didn't feel too much or not enough. I just felt human. Later that evening, back at my apartment, I poured myself a glass of wine and curled up under a throw blanket. The lights from my tree blinked gently against the window. My heart was full, but not in the loud, dramatic way it used to feel during family holidays. It was quiet full, like contentment. I had just started reading when a knock came at the door. My first instinct? Freeze. But when I opened the door, it wasn't Ethan, or Sophie, or my mother. It was Richard. He stood there alone, holding a wrapped box, wearing the same heavy winter coat I'd helped him pick out 2 Christmases ago. "Hi, Jules," he said softly. I blinked. "Richard? Can I come in?" I hesitated, but then stepped aside. We sat in the living room for a moment before either of us spoke. He looked older than I remembered, tired around the eyes, but sincere. "I just came from your Aunt Vivian's," he said. "She told me she stopped by." I nodded. She did. "It meant a lot." He set the box on the coffee table. "This was supposed to be for the family dinner. I thought maybe you should have it instead." I opened it carefully. Inside was a small wooden carving of a house, etched with the words, "Home is where respect lives." I touched the smooth edges, fighting the lump in my throat. Richard sighed. "I should have said something sooner, when all this started, about the trip, the party, Sophie and Ethan. Your mother can be strong-willed, and passive," I finished for him. He winced, but nodded. "Yeah, I didn't stand up for you. I let her speak for both of us. And I'm sorry." For a long moment, we sat in silence. Finally, I said, "It hurt, Richard, being left out like that. After everything." "I know," he whispered. "You didn't deserve it." It wasn't everything I needed, but it was something. And for the first time since all of this began, someone from my family didn't defend what had happened. They acknowledged it. We didn't hug, we didn't cry. But when he left, I noticed the small weight that had been pressing against my chest, lifted just enough to breathe a little deeper. That night, I placed the wooden carving on the mantel beside Aunt Vivian's ornament. A quiet little altar of truth, boundaries, and beginning again. Not everything was fixed, but something had shifted, and maybe that was enough. For now.